Welcome to week 15, Access Control Assurance. So basically, information is a way of assessing the usefulness and effectiveness of information systems. So we're just going to look at how we can ensure that everything that we put together is going to be there. How does the whole IT architecture work? And it's a combination of everything we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So we're going to look at our learning objective, interpret how information assurance concepts can be applied to the access control, basically making sure it is more secure. We're going to be looking at major components within the insurance area, how information insurance can be applied, audit logs, SIEM interaction with control systems. So these are just some of the things we're going to be looking at and how all this comes together. So what is information assurance? It's the practice of managing IT risk related to storage, transportation, creation, and handling of information. The concept of information assurance originated in the U.S. and specifically with the military and intelligence infrastructures. Basically, it's just allowed us to put everything together in a secure way that we can repeat. By having all this down, we're able to figure out what's going on, repeat everything, so it stays this, everything is documented. Information assurance and information security are terms that are often used interchangeably. However, there are really subtle differences between the two. Information assurance is all about risk assessment and mitigation. You can never make it 100% secure due to costs, but you want to make sure the goal is that you make it secure enough that it protects your assets. Basically, there's three main parts we're going to be looking at: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's the large gear, the 5 pillars of information assurance, and the Parkinson hex. So let's take a look at the Cia Triad. Basically, this means you have to have all three of these things in order to have a secure system. Has to provide confidentiality, has to provide integrity, and availability. Our information sits in the middle, right here. But you have to have all three to protect your data. If no one can get to it, it is useless. If we're not keeping it confidential, it is useless. And if we're not protecting the data to ensure it doesn't change. That's the whole purpose of making sure all three of these are available to us. So confidentiality, if we look at the National Security System Instruction 4009, and it states the property that information is not disclosed to a systems entity, users, process, and devices unless they have authorized or access to that information. Basically, information must be viewed, used, and copied only by the people who have it. If someone steals your PIN, that's a bad thing. Integrity, it states the property whereby an entity has to be modified in an unauthorized manner. Data integrity refers to the notion that information cannot be changed, created, or deleted without proper authority. And availability, the property of the being accessible and usable upon demand. Basically, if the user needs it, they need to get to it. We have to keep it all nice and sound. So the 5 pillars we're going to look at quick also: availability, integrity, authentication, confidentiality, and non-repudiation. And again, the three, if you look at we have availability, integrity, and confidentiality, which is similar to the 3 pillar, or the triad we just looked at. But we also want to look at on how it protects us. Again, availability. It has to be available when it's there, when we need it. Integrity, it has to be ensure that the data is non-touched, it's clean, no one's plays with it that doesn't belong. Confidentiality, keeps everything secret. The other two that have added, authentication. Basically, the CNSSI 4009 says that the process of verifying the identity or other attributes claimed by the assumed of the entity, source of the integrity. So basically it's saying, are we identifying, if someone wants to use it, are they allowed to use it? It's not just being available to anyone, but they have to be authorized to use that data. Non-repudiation, the insurance that the sender of the information provides with proof of delivery and receipt. So think of this as if you get a package that you have to sign for, and the package goes back to them. So we have to make sure that whoever's requesting this is who they say they are. So that's what that is about. So we added those two to that. Parking in Hexad, as you can see, it is think of it as a network. Starting with availability, we talked about that. It has to be available when it's needed. Authentication, authenticity, integrity, possession or control, confidentiality, and utility. This is the framework done by Don Parker in 2002. It was developed to expand the CIA model, the Triad, because it involves more. This was developed in response to the limitations of the CIA Triad. The three additional elements, so we have the three, but we've added process and control, confidentiality, and utility. Possession or control is related to confidentiality and is the concept that the control of the information can be breached without confidentiality breach. For example, a thumb flash drive containing a master copy of sensitive data. Possession of that data is now breached, but until it is accessed, it is still confidential. The basis of the control is to prevent contact with confidential information. Authenticity. Does the information correspond correctly for what it is intended? The idea behind the elements to avoid garbled data. And utility. Utility describes the usefulness of the data. Information that is stored that is obsolete is a waste of time. The Hexad is a 5-pillar, NIA, both expand the CIA model. So, as we talked about the CIA Triad, these other two models are just based off of it and added another layer of security. That's what we're just looking at, making it more useful, easier to follow, and it expands it. It says, hey, you know, if this data is obsolete, why are we protecting it? How can information assurance be applied to access control systems? So as we looked at, the framework of access control is essential to the IA. An IA concept should be applied to the organization's access infrastructure. So, what is controls? We want to enforce our confidentiality. One of the primary functions of access control system is allow or deny access to resources and data. By denying access to unauthorized users, the system maintains data and confidentialities. Those without authorization to a given data object cannot view it. Integrity. We have to make sure that the data is untouched. Whoever uses it, it stays exactly as it is, as it should be. And available, we looked at that, has to be available to when it's needed. Having data that's protected so much that if you can't get to it and use it, it is a waste of the time and data. And we have to train employees that we have these systems in place, how to use them, how to go about requesting information so they can do their job. Monitoring reporting goals. Simply having access control is not enough. We need to secure this sensitive information and have access when it's required. Those access control systems must be continually monitored to ensure they have not been breached. We have real-time alerts. We have logs that we can follow. But basically, we're looking for accuracy. In order to be useful, a A monitoring system with a high level of accuracy. Authorized users must be granted access, reliable, and unauthorized users must be not denied access. Variety. Monitoring the system must be able to detect different types of suspiciousness. Timeliness. The system must report suspicious activity quickly. Having a report something that was breached a week ago doesn't do you any good, or a month. That if you have data that is breached, you need to know about it as soon as possible. And the system's reporting needs to be easy to use and has access to anything that's there. Some of the things you might be looking for are anomaly detections, misuse detections, specification detection. So these are some of the things that you're going to be looking at monitoring throughout the system. Did anyone try to get in? Did someone misuse the data? Checks and balances. So many access control breaches originate internally. Employees, we talked about this. Social engineering is one of the things, and people with grudges against the company. To guard against the risk as well as the risk, external attacks, the system needs to check balances in place of internal attacks. Track and monitor with event logs, system level event logs, application level event logs, user level event logs. All these events should be viewed. If there's something suspicious on them, they should be flagged. Someone should be notified if something's happening. Track and monitor user type audits. User audit logs store information on authentication attempts, resources used, commands, and applications. Most importantly, this type of log provides accountability because it ties specific actions to individual users. Track and monitor unauthorized access attempts. Unauthorized access attempts are the key to signal that an attack may be in progress. A single failed access attempt is likely just a typing error, but could be legitimate. But if 10 are attempted, then you can see that it is possibly more of an attack. Some audit trails and log files. Log files contain a wealth of data about what's going on, and they should be viewed by a system. Log file management, a system of storing and rotating log files. The data recorded or stored in a log file may be necessary legal evidence when the time comes for prosecution of an attack. So you want to make sure you save them periodically. Parsing the log file. Is a process of translating and reformatting raw data into useful reports. And this allows, and then we have the audit trail to glean that. Reporting issues. Once the log file are effectively managed and parsed, they must be analyzed. On a production system, the auditing system can produce gigabytes of data, so we need to look at it. It couldn't cause systems to crash. If you collect too much data, don't clean them off. I've had that happen on one of our servers. We didn't clean it, purge this log files, and it created a disk full because there was an error happening. So you need to look at this, reporting issues. So, first one, we got to look at time. During digging through log files, looking for signs of malicious attacks, might be time consuming, so automation analysis makes this much easier. Normalization is the process of translating log files from various systems into a common format. This allows administration to easily compare and correlate events. Prioritization is the process of determining which log file or entries are important and which may require actions versus which are less important or less important. Knowing what to look for makes it easier. Having tunnel vision. Downfall of prioritizing is that some very low or interesting and important data can be overlooked because it doesn't fit into exactly what you're looking for. So you have to have a wide view of what's going on. So you have a security, information, and event management. Basically, this is a software solution that attempts to solve several of the issues discussed in the previous sections. It is designed to centralize storage and normalization logs from a wide variety of applications and devices. The SIEM also simplifies the task of manually analyzing log files because they give consistent interface. So they're able to look through everything instead of having that tunnel vision we just talked about. By having systems do this, it does it automatically, and it will look for patterns and trends, which makes it a much nicer thing. Some best practices that we should always incorporate when we're implementing systems assurance and that we're following thing. Follow defined model. So we're going to either use the triad, the 5 pillars, the Parkinson hexad, are all well known and tested. So if you're going to implement something, pick out one of those models and we're going to use it as our basis. Use access controls to enforce. Regardless of which model you use, access control within the organization should be chosen and developed and enforced. Implement the IDS, an intrusion detection system, as a key tool for recognizing this. Audit trails analysis. Log files, we talked about them, and audit trails are rarely analyzed and are digitally equivalent to paper weight. They should be limited in use because they take up a lot of space. Implement the ongoing training policy. This ensures that all the personnel, not just security engineers, are aware of the information assurance and they know what's going on. We need to educate our employees about security. That's been a common theme throughout the chapters. So we looked at how the guidelines for planning, implementation, and assessing, that we need to make sure that our data is secure, that who only has access it can access it, that it is available. Having the best security, but if people can't get to it, it is useless. We have to be able to let them get to their data when they need it to do their job. So we can look at those, either the triad or the other options to use. Thank you. That was chapter 15, week 15. So remember, go out and smile.